That's what we do when we come out of a scary situation or a traumatic event in our life, and it can be any time in our life. We go to that safe space of like, listen, I'm never gonna let that happen again. I'm gonna control what happens out here. I'm gonna become hyper vigilant and scan this environment 24/7 to make sure I'm safe.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So that's the place I came out of. And I lived my life like that for a really long time until I had, some other events happen to me.
Hi, and welcome to Beyond Empty Nest. I'm your host, Jody Silverman, speaker, mentor, and Chief Dare Officer at Moms Who Dare. Every Thursday, I'll share stories of midlife transformation, happiness tips, and dare you to see the opportunities waiting for you so that you can make this next chapter even better than the last. If you're ready to dare, I'm ready to dare with you. Let's get into today's episode. So what are you afraid of? We all have that one thing that we know we want to do. We want to try. We want to put ourselves out there, but we don't. And we don't because of fear. You're not alone. And today I have the perfect guest to talk us through how to live less afraid. Michele Jones, described by her clients as a mindset ninja. Michele Jones believes we're all capable of learning to recognize the fears that get in our way and set realistic, actionable steps to conquer those. After overcoming trauma, a bad divorce, and someone close to her family completing suicide, Michele found her true calling, supporting midlife mamas looking for purpose, encouragement, and guidance to make real changes in their lives. Love that. Welcome, Michele. Welcome to Beyond Empty Nest.
Thanks for having me, Jody. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I can't think of something better to kick off the new year than to talk about, and I love this, how to live less afraid. Who doesn't want to live less afraid? And we can all agree it's a little bit scary of a world out there right now. But besides what goes on out in the world, we have so much fear within us without the outside noise, and that's what we're going to talk about in a minute. But before we do, I know I read a little bit of your bio. Is there anything else about your story that you'd want to share with the audience to help
Yeah.
understand what really did lead you to, supporting women in this way?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, I like to tell people, all the bad things happened to me when I was younger. But, I really came out of a scary, trauma filled place as a child. And so I literally looked at the whole world afraid.
Mm,
And I was a worrier. And that translated to perfectionism and
mm,
control, which I know your listeners can relate to,
yes.
because that's what we do when we come out of a scary situation or a traumatic event in our life. And it can be any time in our life. We go to that safe space of like, listen, I'm never going to let that happen again. I'm going to control what happens out here. I'm going to become hyper vigilant and scan this environment 24/7 to make sure I'm safe.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So that's the place I came out of. And I lived my life like that for a really long time until I had, some other events happen to me. And I really want to like say child rearing helped me come out of some of that because your kids teach you so much, right? And my kids would say to me, oh my God. And my kids would say to me, Mom, like, why are you worrying about this?
Yes.
This does not matter. And then later in life, we would have conversations back and forth where I would say to them, like in junior high, when they would come home with the drama, something had happened, I'd say, is this really going to matter in 5 years?
Well, that's a good one.
This really something you should be worrying about right now.
Yeah.
And they were able to like set that perspective for themselves.
Michele, you reminded me, our kids do teach us. My kids taught me, they would say the same thing. I would get upset about something or be all stressed from it. Like, Mom, it's really no big deal. It's
Yeah.
really, and like they were giving me, they didn't even know what they were giving me permission to just like breathe.
Yes, to breathe.
I learned
Absolutely.
a lot from my children. They helped me overcome. And I've told them, but I don't know that they really know how much I've overcome because I watched them live so fearlessly, even though they have their own fears, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
watched them live in ways fearlessly in ways that inspired me to say, what am I scared of? So yeah, pay
Yeah.
attention. Your kids can teach you.
They really can. And so I think like that whole journey of motherhood for me really showed me that I didn't have to be, well, you can't be perfect
Oh gosh, no.
with with kids and a job and like the laundry and the stuff everywhere and this is you can't do it. You
No.
cannot live that life. And so it really helped me overcome some of that perfectionism and control because you just have to let some of that stuff go as a parent. Yet
Well,
otherwise, you really will make yourself crazy. So there was that piece I think that really started the door opening. But then I've always been interested in personal development, and I've also been that person that is an empath, and people will just come to and want to talk to me about what's going on in their life. And because I've walked those dark roads, like nothing you say is going to shock me. I'm going to listen. I'm not going to be judgmental. And I think that's what, brings me to the live less afraid world is like, I recognize this life is finite.
mm,
We're not even promised tomorrow. So you have to go out there and be brave and take those big swings.
yeah.
You have to do it. You have to. If there's something that you're chasing, let's go. I say that to my clients sometimes when they're like, I'm like, let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go.
I
Like,
love that. I love
stop
that.
waiting.
Okay, so that leads us into, and I love this conversation for so many reasons, but there are three really big main areas of fear. And
Mhm.
I don't know if people are gonna find it hard to believe, but a fear is just not like one thing.
Mm-mm.
There's a few different types of fear, and you talk about three, the same
Yeah.
fear that I like to talk about too. So we're gonna address three biggies as it comes to
Yes.
fear, three types of fear that could be holding you all, whoever's listening right now, could be holding you back from living your life with purpose and fulfillment and fun and with less worry and with less anxiety. I mean, how would it feel to
Mm.
release that first type of fear, that fear of failure, right?
Yes. Right.
So let's
It's
talk into fear of failure for a little bit. It's a big one.
Yeah, and I think it definitely goes back to that control and perfectionism again,
Oh, it
right?
is.
Like,
Mhm.
that's the other thing when you come out of a tough event, like say my divorce, for example. I had a lot of shame and guilt. And gosh, what are people thinking? Like, she can't even make a marriage work. Like who is she to give advice? But that fear of failure thing, we have to recognize that all of our growth, all the things that we want are on the other side of trying. And you know how, I mean, if you don't try, you don't fail, right? And I'm happy to say that it took what it took for me to figure out the relationship thing. And now I'm happily married. But I had a lot of learning, a lot of failing to do to get to this point
Yeah.
where I can be in a really fulfilling relationship now. But it was only because I wasn't afraid to be in that space of failure and know that I could live through it, get
Yeah.
through it, so that we're not gonna die from it. Oh my gosh, we think that, that stops us from even trying, right? Because 'Cause we're so afraid of the failure that we won't take the risk.
Right. And and I always say, like, so what? When somebody says, well, what if it doesn't work? Do you know how many things that I've launched, I failed to launch? I mean, do you know how many launches I've had for my membership, for other things that never worked out? That
Yeah.
and I'm not saying I always felt fearless around this, but like you, I'm a personal
Mm.
growth junkie. I am.
Mhm.
I am. I will eat it all up. I mean, and I'll say to my like, what? So what happens if you fail?
Yeah.
What happens if you learn from it?
Yeah, and I think, like, the really pivotal point that your listeners take away from this is, like, you just said it. It wasn't that you weren't afraid. You were afraid, but you went ahead and did it anyway.
Yeah.
And that's where the magic or the mojo is, right? Is, um, recognizing that fear is just an emotion, right? Just like joy or sadness or anger. It's just an emotion.
Yeah.
And we just have to like be like, all right, I see you, but I'm going to go ahead and take that step anyway, even though I am scared to death and I know I won't die, like for real, right?
Yeah. And
And that's where the magic is.
so, you say you suggest always, first of all, learn from it. Failing, and you'll hear everybody say, you'll hear from Hollywood actors, from famous authors like
Yep.
J.K. Rowling that tried over and over again, over and over again. We'll get to that, the fear of rejection. But the fear of failure, I don't know, feeling is uncomfortable. If you want something bad enough and it doesn't work out, it hurts and it's uncomfortable. But yet you learn from it. You learn something about yourself. You might learn something about the process. You might learn something about somebody else. You might
Mhm.
learn that you actually hated what you wanted to have happen,
Yeah.
and it took you another direction. So to me, fear of failure, if you can flip the script on how you look at it,
Yes.
that, okay, I want to succeed and I'm going to do everything I can to make this a success. And should it not happen, I'm going to learn from it.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
1,000% correct. And you've probably heard that saying like fail faster.
Yes.
Any kind of startup, any of those big companies,
Yeah.
Amazon, Google,
Yeah.
all of the
Fail.
Facebook, they have failed and failed and failed and just learned from it and kept going. And so that's, we have to take
Yeah.
those to heart also.
Yeah.
Look at it as an opportunity to grow.
And you say baby steps, like one thing, just say one.
I'm a big fan of baby steps, because I think one of the things we do with fear in general is we make it this really big thing, right? Oh
Yeah.
my God, my membership, I can't possibly launch this thing. It's so big, it's so overwhelming. I couldn't, But if we just say one little thing, I'm going to do one little thing today. I'm going to send out a survey to my email group, just asking if they'd be interested in a membership. That's all. That's all I'm going to do. And I'm
That,
going to leave all the rest of those crazy things that are in my head over here and just take that one step. I love the baby step analogy because I think, clarity brings action. We hear that all the time. Action brings clarity. Action brings clarity. You have to take a step forward, right? So baby steps for me is just that way to really work with my clients, and to say, listen, I know this feels overwhelming, but let's just figure out one thing you can do right now
yep. Yep. Yep.
and do that. That's all. No pressure.
Yeah. Take the pressure away. I
Take the
get that.
pressure off.
Well, now that leads us to the second most common fear that people have, fear
Fear
of
of rejection.
and criticism.
Oh my gosh, yeah. What are people gonna think?
What are they going to say? What about,
What are they gonna
I'll even
say?
throw in there fear of rejection and criticism from yourself and others.
Mm.
How about rejection from others and criticism from yourself?
Criticism from ourselves, right? It's the worst. And I
Uh,
think especially for like midlife moms, I like to talk a lot about with my clients about like mom guilt. Like mom
yeah.
guilt's the worst. And we will beat ourselves up and criticize ourselves and say the meanest things to ourselves. And it's the inner mean girl. That's what I talk about her driving the car, like a car analogy. And I tell people, I'm like, make her get in the back seat. Imagine the old station wagons we used to have in the 70s.
Backseat that
And
faces out the window.
yes, the one that faces the back end of the car. Make her get out in there because
My God, we're
if you
showing
just
our
let
age.
her keep criticizing you, like that's just oof, that's like some really low energy, right? Low space to be in.
What do you tell? What do you suggest to your clients who have a real fear of being rejected from somebody else and face criticism, especially today? I mean, I know my businesses. I do a lot online. I put myself out there. Not everyone's going to like what I have to say or the way I say it.
Mm. I say it's none of your business what other people think about you.
That's another fear. But this is why we're
It's
talking today.
and it's easier said than done because we're human,
Yeah,
right? And we want people
absolutely.
to like us. Um, but I think it goes back to what you said a moment ago about grace. We have to have loving kindness to ourselves first and realize that when we're growing and trying something new and stepping out of our comfort zone, that we have to give ourselves grace, right? Grace to fail, grace to be rejected. You talked about Hollywood actors a minute ago. Good Lord, like they're the masterclass teachers on rejection, right? They
Yeah.
go back over and over and over again and get told, no, you're too tall, you're too short, your hair's too light, your hair's too
Right.
dark, you're too
Sometimes
young,
there's no reason.
sometimes there's no reason at all. And I think so grace, I think, is the big thing. I like to say grace to yourself, loving kindness to yourself, and realizing too that we all feel this way, that we all feel like, I like to talk about this like, okay, you have your fears and your self-doubts, right? I have mine. And I worry about what you're thinking about me, right? But really, if you stop and think about it, we're also wrapped up in our own stuff. Then we don't have time to think about you. We're too busy
No,
thinking about our own stuff. So
no,
I think
it's
if we
true.
can kind of remember that too, that
Yeah.
everybody out here is struggling in their own ways,
Mhm.
that can kind of take some of that power out of feeling like, "Oh, I'm going to be rejected. I'm going to be criticized."
I
Because you're
and
already
I
doing all that in your head yourself.
It's true, it's true. I'm gonna share something. Something just triggered in my mind. I wanna add something to this.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, sometimes when we dare to put ourselves out there to try something new, to to be pursue a new purpose, to
Yeah.
become something a little bit different than we're like, I was in sales, I became a life coach. Sometimes the people closest to you, you can be fearful of criticism from them. I
Hmm.
was. When
Hmm.
I said yes to a direct sales business, I was so scared. What are my parents going to say? What's my mom going to say? And I got so caught up in the fear of what somebody else is going to think of me, their criticism, their judgment of me. So, I think about that a lot. And I think what got me through it is I truly believed in what I wanted to do. And I think it goes back to what you just said. The first thing you said is their opinion is really none of your business. If you know in your heart that you're ready to try something new, you want to try something new, I would even dare you not to ask somebody what they think. Just share with them. That's when I ended up flipping it. I said, I'm going to share with my family what I'm doing. I'm not going to phrase it like this is what I'm doing. What do you think? Because as soon as
Yeah.
you say, what do you think? You're opening up the door for rejection and criticism. And if you're doing what you're going to do anyway, stand firm and say, hey, I decided I'm going back to school to blah, blah, blah. And I'm excited about it. I just wanted to share it with you. If that
Yep.
person then decides to tell you why you're too old or why you shouldn't do it, I didn't ask you for your opinion. It's what I'm doing. I'm very excited. But you made me figure that with rejection and criticism, sometimes self-criticism, you got to check that at the door. I love what you
You do.
say. Give yourself grace. Would you ever criticize your best friend? Would you ever
Yes.
tell your children not to do that? But the criticism, I had a big fear of that. And it was when I realized, well, I'm not asking for opinions. So they
Hmm.
don't get to give them to me. And if they offer it to me, I'm just walking away from it.
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah. And even an extra like
Yes.
yes and to that
Yes.
is being careful about who we share our hopes and dreams with too. Because I'm telling you, girlfriend, I got a lot of friends, but they don't all get that piece of me.
That I'm going to tell you something right now. If we ended this episode here, that's probably the wisest thing you could share with somebody. Be careful who you share your hopes and dreams with. Your hopes and
Yeah.
dreams are priceless. Your
Yep.
hopes and dreams are your gold, and they are your heart and soul. And I mean, if we ended it right now, it was be careful
Yeah.
and
Choose
choose
wisely.
wisely.
Yeah. And,
Yeah,
curate new friends.
I love that. Love
Curate new
that.
friends, new mentors. As you grow, as you rise, you're going to need a new group of friends. And I'm just
Right.
here to tell you. And it's not that you're not keeping those people that have been in your life a long time. They're great. They're fine. They're going to be there. You're going to have coffee and wine with them, whatever.
Yep.
But as you grow and you level up and you chase your dreams and you're fearless, you're living less afraid, you're probably going to need some new friends to really help you along that journey.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm writing that down right now because that's a whole nother episode we're going to talk about. It's because that's a hard one. That's the
It is a hard
that's
one.
that's also fear of changing and letting go of what's known and being scared that, your current they
Yeah.
won't see it. That's a whole other conversation.
You can unpack it even more than that too, of like, we're nice, right? We've been raised to be nice
Nice.
girls, good
Yes.
girls. So, you don't want to like be mean to Susie or not talk to Susie anymore. It's not about that. You can still be friends with Susie. You're just not going to unpack all of your hearts and
Exactly.
desires with her. You're going to go, have wine with her on Tuesday night and, talk about the latest movie that just came out or something. Like, that's fine, you
Yeah.
know?
I actually, and I might even put that in our show notes too. I did an episode about doing a friendship audit. I interviewed an author of a book called How to Break Up with Your Friends. And it's not what you
Mm,
think. She named it that to grab your attention. It's a great book. But yeah, so fear of
yeah,
rejection, criticism, give yourself
mhm,
grace, be careful who
mhm,
you share your dreams with, stand
mhm.
firmly in believing in your dreams. They're yours. They're yours. And really practice discernment with
Yeah,
who you share it with. And then
yep,
this one, obviously, the last one is my favorite because it's the fear of the unknown.
yeah,
So the fear of not knowing, so we stay in our comfort zone. That's the whole premise of daring. Like that's what
mhm,
daring on is about leaving your comfort zone. So how do you
yeah.
talk through that with somebody about how do you move through
Ooh,
that?
I love this one. And, earlier before we started the call, I talked about like, let's go. Like, I get so excited when I'm talking to somebody and I see that they're passionate about something, but they're fearful about going for it. I'm like, oh, we need to do this. Let's talk it out.
Yeah.
So I think, like, first of all, just expressing it, right, to those trusted people around you. Gosh, I really want to do this thing. I'm kind of feeling scared. What do you think? Does this sound like something? Like, am I on the right track? And then, I love doing future self exercises around this too. I was just listening to Carrie Green. She's the CEO of the Female Entrepreneur Association. Her podcast, She Means Business. She just had an episode where she talked about this, about imagining where you are in 5 years and in 10 years. Who are you? What do you look like? What do you sound like? What's an average a day look like? And really embodying that can help us look at the right now, this roadblock we think's right here, and go, oh, look down the road. Look where you are. Oh my gosh. Look at how fantastic this turned out. So I love doing future self work. And then finally, I love doing worst case scenarios. I think we talked a little bit about this before when I was talking about my kids, and I would say to them, is this going to matter in 5 years? So
Mm,
worst case scenario, saying it, speaking it out loud. Oh my gosh, I'm so afraid that if I start a membership, no one's going to come. No one's going to join. Or they're going to come and I'm not going to have anything to say. I'm not going to bring any value. You know, they're all going to think like, who's this lady? You know what I mean? Like, just talking those things out, even saying the words out loud helps you do a fact check. And if you're with a mentor or a friend, they can say, come on, that's not true.
right.
You
Yep.
know you have all this information to
Yep.
share. You know what I mean? So kind of just almost faking yourself out in a way, like fact checking your brain, because your brain just wants to be
I,
safe.
I like that fact check. You fact check your brain is really questioning your thought. The question you left, you're like, is that
Questioning your thought.
true? Is that really going to happen? I
Yeah.
love the whole fact check your brain, but I love the future self. Somebody had led me through a future self meditation once. I loved it.
I love it too.
That's a visualization. That's seeing your dreams in action. That's
Mhm.
seeing you living in your dream. And I'm all about visualization because it's a powerful manifesting tool. But I like that.
Yeah.
Those are three really good ways to move through the fear of the unknown
Yeah.
and get out of
And
your
when you talk about unknowns, Jody, too, I think when you're future selfing, it helps your brain connect the dots that it's really
yeah,
not that scary out there,
yeah,
that it really is this thing you want
yeah,
and gets you
yeah.
excited about it.
I like that. I like that a lot. I do. These were good. So fear of failure, use it as a learning tool, baby steps, just choose one little thing.
Yep.
And when you
Yep.
do one little thing and it works, great. Because just as likely something will happen good. And you're thinking, well, what if it fails? Well, what if it doesn't? You
Mhm.
can flip that script. And if it
Yeah.
doesn't, like you can even say, if it doesn't, really, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, too, even that mantra, saying that to yourself, like, things work out for me. This is going to work out. This is going
Things
to be
work out.
great. This is going
That's
to
a
be
good tip
great.
right there. That use the mantra, things work out to me. And I would even dare you to even say, look back at a time that you were scared and you did
Mhm.
something anyway and it worked out for you. Find
Love
proof.
that.
Find the
I
proof.
love I love finding proof, because if you can find proof, then your little reptilian brain has a harder time talking you into being scared.
Yeah.
Because you can say, "Oh, I have done that before." I'm going to be
That's good.
fine. This is going to work out.
Yeah, it is. This was good. This is a good conversation. Since you're entering this like new year, which one of these is the one that has you stuck most? Fear of failure, fear of rejection and criticism, or fear of the unknown, and it's keeping you from really stepping out of your comfort zone and trying something new and daring to discover something new. And speaking of daring, Michele, nobody gets out of Beyond Empty Nest without a dare.
Yes.
You have a good one.
Okay. Yes, I have my dare for you guys. I'm daring you to identify that one thing you've been avoiding, that one fear, and take the one small step towards it.
Yep. I'm going to tell you all something. I'm thinking of one right now in my life as we're recording this. And I wrote it down. I'm going to do it. And I let somebody know earlier before this call, I'm going to do it. So what is the one thing you've been avoiding and allowing fear to stop you from doing? Identify it and take one small step towards overcoming it. That is your dare for this week.
I love it.
Right now.
And I love that you told someone too. I think that's important.
I did. Right before I got on, I called up my bestie. I said, I have been putting this off on the background, letting everything take control. And she stopped doing it and she told me, I have more people supporting me in what I want to do. And I'm not saying yet. I'm not saying it yet to everybody. I'm being discerning.
Yep. Be discerning.
She said, just do it. And I am. I'm doing it. I'm taking action. I put it on my calendar tomorrow to take my first step.
Yay.
I'll keep you posted, Michele. I'll keep everybody here posted too.
All right. I'm excited.
Thank you so much for having this very important conversation. And, everybody knows what I say at the end. The purpose, the reason I started this podcast is to bring you guests that will say one thing. If you get one thing from every episode that turns on a light bulb in your brain, has you say, oh my gosh, yes, that's it, Michele. What was it for you in this episode? What was it for you? Which maybe we identified the fear. Maybe we gave you a tip on how to move forward. Maybe we gave you that new perspective that it's not that bad. It's really not as scary as you're making it seem. What was it for you from this episode? Let us know. Leave a comment. If you're watching us on YouTube, leave us a comment via giving us a review on the Apple podcast. You can actually write a review. Send me a message. If you want to email me from my website, I will make sure Michele gets the message. If you want to leave her a really great message, what did she say today that really helped change the trajectory of your new year? Make this a year where fear drives the car a little bit less. Right? Michele, who's that? Liz Gilbert. Yeah. So, all right, everybody. Let us know. Tune in next week for another new episode of Beyond Empty Nest. And as I always say, dare on. Thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond Empty Nest. Head over to jodysilverman.com for full show notes, more information, and additional resources. Speaking of additional resources, I've got a great one for you in the show notes below. So if you've enjoyed today's show and are ready to embrace this midlife chapter, then you're going to want to grab our featured resource called the Self-Talk Cleanup Challenge. You may not think so, but to quote our friend Oprah, the one thing I know for sure is that negative self-talk and thoughts are what's keeping you stuck in fear and lacking confidence to take the leaps in midlife that you desire to take. When you grab this resource, you'll receive the exact exercise my first coach took me through. It's simple, yet powerful. In addition, I'll send you a few other tools and tricks to help you knock out the negativity when it shows up, thereby increasing your confidence and your overall happiness, allowing you to have fulfillment and fun in midlife. You deserve it. So go ahead and grab your copy of the Self-Talk Cleanup Challenge, and I'll see you next Thursday. Until then, dare on.